Good morning and welcome to today's episode of Join the Dots. Now hopefully as this week has progressed, you're seeing that I spend hours and hours and days and months finding the truth. Only from the truth can you make the right decisions, ultimately. Yes, temporarily it might work, but ultimately you need the truth. And then you need the experience and the insight to understand that truth. And then you need to apply that truth with some common sense. So today we're talking about a macro housing bust, which is now unstoppable. Whatever you read, whatever you think even, it is unstoppable because it's far worse than 2008. 2008 was a mortgage bubble. It was an accessibility to finance bubble. 2025 is an economic collapse. No bubbles, collapse. And that means we have to adjust our thinking as to what is happening. Now I've read lots of surveys over the last few days, and I'm going to give you a list in the description of all the sources of my information so that you can have a look. You can look for it if you want. I feel my job is to do all that research, bring you the truth, because you're not getting it in the media, you're not getting it anywhere, because there are too many vested interests. It's a period of what I call corporate fascism, and it applies to everything. And I know it's a hard word, but it needs to be a hard word to make you understand what is happening. Corporate fascism means that large corporations and governments are working together, hand in hand, and we've seen that no more than obviously in the pharma industry and the US Senate, where the vaccination process was completely controlled by the Senate, the media, the pharma industry, not the best for the people. The people need help finding the truth. So that's what we're doing on Join the Dots. So let's get on. There is a macro bubble. Now, I've talked to you this week about China, and I really think you have to understand this. I did a short this morning to say that there's a $47 trillion hole. There is. Okay? So earlier in this week, I said it was a 30 trillion hole. That is the amount of losses in the mortgage market. 30 trillion of house values have disappeared. So where's the 17? The 17 trillion is in local government investment bonds. So Chinese local governments have issued 17 trillion of bonds against the proceeds that they receive for selling land to be developed for houses. But there's no land being sold. There's no houses being developed. They've got a 30 million losses in value. So why would you develop more housing? All the major property companies are bust. Evergrande, Country Gardens, Sunak, Shimao. I've been following them since the end of 21. And I actually talked to clients about shorting their shares, which some of my clients did, and did very well. We could see what was coming. We used common sense, we used the truth, we used the real numbers, okay? And that's what we're doing today. And I've given you lots of information in the description to help you go onto those sites, to have a look and see what you can find. Or you can listen to me, and then it will make it easier for you to understand when you read the article. We've come to an affordability crisis. We've come to the point where people simply can't afford the properties that are on offer. And we've seen in the last month 15% of sales, which is a record number since 2007. 15% of sales have collapsed between being agreed and concluded. This is a very high number. This is a warning sign. This is people understanding, ordinary people understanding that their prospects, their job prospects, their work prospects, their income prospects are not as good as they thought, maybe only 3-4 months ago. Nothing to do with tariffs. Don't buy that ridiculous excuse of tariffs. Nothing to do with tariffs. This is a fundamental recognition of people that they don't have enough confidence in their employment to go ahead and commit to a 30-year mortgage at probably 7% or just under. It's a ridiculous level compared to where we were in 2007, 2008, 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16. We've gone through another period of easy access to money at cheap rates. and it's come to an end. And now, as I've told you before, we have an oil tanker theory here. You cannot turn the housing market round. You cannot turn it round. It has to bottom, as we saw in 07, 08. It has to bottom. You can't just start dropping interest rates incrementally and expecting the tanker to turn and go back the other way. No. Job prospects are falling at an incredible rate. And we're seeing the data from the Census Bureau of America. We're seeing it from almost every source that I've given you is telling you the same thing, the truth. Then use your insight and your experience to think, well, if this is true, if people have less confidence, if people are cancelling purchases because they don't have the confidence, then what is the prospect? And then you have to bring the whole macro picture together, join the dots. What is happening? China has 47 trillion of losses. Subprime was 3.4 trillion. 15 times as much wealth has been lost and needs to work its way through the global banking system. Everyone is screaming about America's debt. Everyone is saying America has 37 trillion of debt. China's just lost 47 trillion. 30 trillion in household wealth, 17 trillion in local government bonds, which need to be financed, which need to pay their interest, which need to be what? Who's going to pay it? Who's going to pay that money? Chinese government? It can't pay $17 trillion. It can't pay that amount. So we are coming to a point, and as I say, I've given you lots of links, Wall Street, Reuters, EPB Research. I really would encourage you to look at their site. Okay, I found this one recently. I think it's very good. I think it's very professional, and I think it's very helpful. So if you want to just go on and do one inspection to make sure that you think it's reliable, do that. EPB Research, okay? This joining the dots is all about risk reward, because at the end of the day, your money is so important to your future, your life, your family, your friends, how you live. It's so important. So tomorrow, I'm going to give you an extremely good interpretation of what is happening in the market and what we should be looking for. And it's based on something called Exter's Pyramid, E-X-T-E-R''S, Exter's Pyramid. Look it up if you wish. I think I've asked you to do this before. Look it up. I will deliver to you a video which will help you, and you can have the whole weekend, okay? Give you the weekend to really look at it, think about it, understand the consequences. Because the base of that pyramid, housing and equities, are so unstable. And as the pyramid flips, we are going to see moves in all asset classes. But let's start with property. Let's start with one that you can identify with. You've lived through 2008. You've lived through the consequences of a bubble and burst. Okay, this is multiple times worse. That doesn't mean the consequences will be multiple times worse, because it depends what the industry, what the governments do. But they cannot avoid it. That's the key. They cannot avoid it. So please, the truth is screaming at me that we have a problem that you have to live through, you cannot avoid. Okay, that doesn't mean you rush out and sell your house. No, your house is your home, it's where you live. But are you too indebted? Are you going to face a problem if that price falls 20, 30, 40, 50%? Are you going to face a problem with the financing? You have to prepare for this, because it's the most important asset in your life. And those who have buy-to-let portfolios, then it's a different thing. That's a business, it's a risk-reward transaction. What is your risk now versus what it was when you started? What is your reward now versus what it was when it started? Reassess, continually reassess, okay, based on the truth. So please, if you find this information helpful, if you find the description helpful, if you find all the links I've given you helpful, please like, subscribe, tick that notification bell. Let's get this message out there, and let's help as many people as possible by joining the dots, using the truth, and applying logic, common sense and experience to come to a sensible, rational plan. Thank you.